I'm Noreen McKinney, Director of Arts Development with the Arts Council. So just a very quick welcome to this Zoom on our support for the Individual Artist Programme, looking specifically at our General Art Awards and our ACES scheme. I need to let you know that the session will be recorded so that others who can't join live will be able to benefit from the Zoom. You'll only see us on screen because there's so many on the platform. And you can only ask your questions, because you're all muted, through the Q&A function. So if you please, as your questions occur to you, type them into the Q&A. When we get to that, we will read the question out and we will reply through the staff who are here as succinctly as we can, and I'll try to field those questions out. We're going to start with a quick run through of the guidance notes by our Festivals and Venues Officer, Siobhan Malloy, who's also on the call. That's going to take about 10 minutes and hopefully that will be helpful. But of course, I hope you have read the guidance notes, have them with you in front of you and have your queries ready for us. So with that, Leanne, please, we'll start with the short video.
Hello, my name is Siobhan Malloy and I'm the Officer in charge of Festivals, Venues and International Projects at the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. I'm going to offer you a quick overview today of the General Art Awards and the Artist Enhancement Schemes, both of which are currently open for application. The two schemes are part of the Arts Council's wider funding support programme for artists, called the National Lottery Support for Individual Artists Programme, or SIAP for short. So SIAP includes a range of individual funding schemes, the overall aim of which is to support artists to create work and to develop their practice. The General Art Awards and the Artists Career Enhancement Scheme are open to artists working across all art forms and disciplines and at different stages of their careers. Both have a closing date for applications of 12 noon on Thursday the 31st of August 2023, and both schemes fund proposals that will take place between the 10th of November 2023 and the 31st of October 2024. We will announce our decisions in November. You can apply to more than one scheme within the SIAP programme, but you will only be awarded one grant in any funding round. And if you choose to apply to more than one scheme, you must complete a separate application form for each scheme, and the projects within each application must be significantly distinct. Please do note that if you have already received a SIAP award within the previous 12 months, you cannot apply to the same scheme again in this round. In other words, if you receive a General Art Award last year, you cannot apply for a General Art Award again this year. You can, however, apply to any other scheme within the SIAP programme, including the Artist Career Enhancement Scheme. General Art Awards can be for specific projects, specialised research, personal artistic development and certain materials and equipment. This scheme is open to all artists and we particularly welcome applications from emerging artists who are in the early stages of their careers. We also encourage applications from individuals who are working together in cross-discipline or single art form projects. The upper limit of awards is generally £5,000 and for one project only, even if the project is collaborative. In exceptional circumstances, an award for £6,000 could be considered. General Art Awards are for project assistance, so that would cover items such as art materials, buying time for your practice or creation of new work. It could be artistic or technical fees, including production or post-production costs associated with the presentation or exhibition of work. You could consider elements such as venue hire for rehearsal space. You can include project-related travel and subsistence costs. You can also apply for funding for technical equipment and IT equipment. However, if you are applying for equipment, please read the guidance notes carefully as there are stipulations and restrictions on how much you can ask for, and equipment costs cannot comprise more than 50% of your request. Please note we do not accept applications for self-publishing or for film, TV or media projects, except where a project relates to experimental work for exhibition or projects by digital artists whose artwork is created exclusively in the digital space. We also do not fund scriptwriting for television or film. NI Screen would be the appropriate funding body in this instance. We do not fund the purchase of musical instruments through our General Art Awards. We run a separate funding scheme for musical instruments, and we will announce details of that particular SIAP scheme when it becomes available. The aim of the Artist Career Enhancement Scheme is to deepen the developmental impact of Arts Council's support for artists. The scheme offers a package of training, mentoring and support for career artists whose practice is high quality, original, challenging and innovative. It is for artists of real talent whose potential is already obvious and who have a clear and realistic view of their career. We want to enable such artists to raise their profile and significantly enhance their careers. Successful applicants will benefit from the expertise and experience provided by partnering with one of our major arts organisations, the likes of Andreihead, Circusville, the Centre for Contemporary Art and Moving On Music, for example. Awards of £7,000 are available in each art form area, and that would include visual art, craft, community and participatory arts, literature, music, dance, drama, intercultural and traditional arts. The Artist Career Enhancement Scheme is open for applications until the end of the month. However, there was a cut-off point of the 11th of August last Friday by which you should have discussed your application with one of our art form officers. So if you are coming to us afresh today and you haven't already talked about your project to one of our officers, the ACES scheme is not one to look at for this year. However, if you have already talked to us, please continue. And hopefully today's information session will help you. For both of the schemes, the General Art Awards and the Artist Career Enhancement Scheme, we welcome applications from artists of all disciplines and all sorts of working practice. You do need to have made a contribution to artistic activities in Northern Ireland for a minimum of 1 year. You need to live in Northern Ireland and you need to be at least 18 years of age and not in secondary education. In a limited number of cases, individual technical staff or administrators of professional artistic companies may also be eligible to apply. Employees of statutory bodies, undergraduates and postgraduates are eligible to apply but must prove that the funds which they are seeking are for work or costs which are not properly the concern of their employer or not related to their work or academic study. There are various ways in which you must evidence that, and you'll find further details in the guidance notes. You must apply using our online system. We will not accept applications by hard copy or email. Online applications can be edited, saved and returned up to the closing date. You will find the link to the online application system on the Support for Individual Artists programme webpage. It is important to remember that all documentation associated with the application needs to be submitted at the same time. These are the mandatory enclosures and they are listed on the attachment page within the online application and they are detailed in the guidance notes. So things like, for example, the history of artistic practice, it could be images of your work or a detailed project budget. You must ensure that you leave sufficient time to upload all of these documents to the system because as we approach the deadline, there may be hundreds of people trying to submit to the system at the same time. The programme will close at 12 noon precisely on the closing date, and if you complete your application and it is not fully uploaded when the system closes, your application will not be accepted. If you submit your application by the closing deadline, you will receive an automated email advising you that your application has been successfully submitted. If you do not receive this email, your application has not been submitted. The deadline to apply for both the General Art Awards and the Artist Career Enhancement Scheme is 12 noon on Thursday the 31st of August 2023. All applications will be assessed by Arts Council Arts Development Officers against the stated criteria and within the competitive context in which all funding applications are evaluated. We will announce our decisions in November. Please do read the guidance notes on the website carefully. They will help you to understand what we require from you when making an application. If you require guidance notes in large print or other accessible formats, please contact us at the Arts Council. If you have a disability which affects your ability to complete the online application form, please contact the University of Atypical, who provide tailored advice and support to deaf, disabled and neurodiverse applicants when submitting applications to the Arts Council. If you would like to speak to an art form officer about your application, please visit our website contact page where you will find all our staff details. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. We will now just go straight into the Q&As, and I see there's 5 up there. So Paula, I'm going to your question first. Deaf artist, Paula Clark, should I add cost for British Sign Language interpreters fee and their flight accommodation to America? However, it will not be enough to cover for my budget. I feel the Arts Council should provide extra budget for my sign line interpreter for my communication access because I'm profoundly deaf and can't use my speech to communicate with hearing people. Please give me your best advice. Olivia, can you remind us of the guidance notes and our allowance there? You're on mute. So just give us a minute, Paula. Sorry, you're
sorry. Yeah. That's something that I'm actually not too sure off the top of my head, but I could get back to Paula separately if she wouldn't mind popping me an email. My email address is available on the contact list on the website.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Olivia. And yes, we'll deal with that specifically and give you advice on what to include. Then Karen, isn't the history of artistic practice included in the application form rather than a separate attachment? Suzanne's shaking her head there, so Suzanne, keep us right on that.
Sure, separate document, absolutely. It could be a full CV for you. We ask for people's artistic CVs because several years ago somebody said, "Do you care that I work in Tesco?" And we said, "Well, that's great. Glad you got some money coming in there, but we're really interested in your artistic practice." So that's what the artistic CV is about, but it can be a full one if you like. So that needs to be a separate document. The application form won't have enough space for that potentially. So yes, separate document, please.
Thanks, Siobhan. Jacqueline, unfortunately, you didn't realise there was a deadline for ACEs and you're still waiting to hear back from the organisation that you wanted to partner with. But I'm afraid that window is now closed. So perhaps, you can apply again next year. Yeah, but it's important that you do have that lined up, and then that you speak to us about your proposal, because it's such a tailored programme. We need to be able to talk it through with you. So regrets for that. We have an anonymous. If you're an artist who works across theatre and film and applying to the Arts Council for funding for a theatre project, is it appropriate to put in awards achievements in film? For example, being awarded NI Screen funding, directing or editing work for screen as evidence of artistic quality, or would that be seen as irrelevant to your application as it's not something that Arts Council funds? I think it is appropriate. Of course, you know, anything that is a testament to your artistic achievement, although as the guidance notes, I hope make clear, yes, we don't directly fund film related projects, so you'll understand that. But yes, I think you can reference in
Well,
your
sorry, you would put that into the contribution to the arts, which is the second criterion on the artist's contribution to the arts. But if it's a proposal that's going in for theatre, say, you would be looking to evidence artistic activity at the first criterion that was related to that particular art form.
Thanks, Damien. Conan wants to know why have an information session for ACEs after it's now too late to contact an art form officer. Well, Conan, this morning we're hoping to be able to help you maybe with other aspects, but the programs have been open for over a month now. So, you know, obviously people would have had the opportunity to read the guidance notes before then. And we had to set a deadline just to give people an opportunity to have both their partnering organisation lined up and then to have that conversation about fit. And so apologies for that. But we didn't want to cancel or leave out ACEs because it had a separate requirement attaching to it. So hopefully other aspects are still useful. An anonymous, how are joint projects managed for general art awards, e.g. collaboration between musician and writer to produce a joint album book project? Damien, any reflections there?
You would really need more detail on that project. Is it a book or is it an album? Is it collaborative in both cases? A collaboration on the book and album by both artists, or is it a project which the two artists are working together but distinctly in relation to the art form? So I'd need a bit more on the detail of that particular collaboration and joint working. So yeah. If the person wishes to drop an email, I'll be able to get back to them directly on that.
Thank you, Damien. And you might notice, though, for people who've applied before, perhaps we do ask for the artistic CVs of all artists involved in the project. Previously, it was the lead artist, but we do need your CVs for all the collaborators. So that's a bit of a change there. So just to flag that. Kate wants to know, what's the best way to apply to buy time for a poetry project? Or is it better to have something more specific to pay for, i.e. buying time of a mentor or a relevant poetry workshop? And I'll hand over to Damien in a minute.
Oh. Okay, go ahead, Maureen.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say this year, again, we've tried to introduce more guidance on costing your time. And I hope that's been helpful. It is a guide. And yes, because people have found this difficult. But Damien, over to you on specifics.
Buying time is a legitimate and eligible cost. So there's no need to be concerned if that's if that's what you need to do, is to get time away in order to focus on what it is you're doing. If you think that mentoring is any use to you, if you think that a more specific type of engagement on training or skilling would be useful to you, then put that in as well. But you don't need one or other of those. It's entirely down to what you would consider to be your artistic need for the project that you have in mind.
Thank you, Damien. Anna wants to know, or she's hoping to apply for 3 areas of practice: catalogue for solo exhibition, materials for new work, and the cost of a residency. Is that okay? And did you say a maximum amount is 5K? Over to you, Suzanne.
All right, muted. Now I've lost the question. I'm trying to get that back up again. Sorry. Because it had several bits of detail in it. I just need to pick up on. So let's see. Well, under visual, let's see, materials for new work. Yes, absolutely. If this is a general art award, or I'm wondering, is it a general or an international one? Because you put the cost of a residency in. But happy to hear there can be a little bit of travel and support in a general for those kinds of things. But if it's one abroad, it's maybe a different scheme you need, well, a different element of the scheme you need, the International Development Fund. So that's worth thinking of. Catalogue. Catalogues with kind of, with pressure on the funds, that's not always something that can be prioritised, but technically could go in. So you can have a think about that. Is it really, we wouldn't be looking to support the production of the run of it, but if you needed, say, photographs to document your work and they happen to be going towards something else, you could certainly talk to us about that. The maximum amount for a general art award is 5, ordinarily, by exception, up to 6,000 if you have a really, really exceptional project in your career terms. So we'll be happy to hear about that. So 3 areas of your practice, interesting, to see what that may be. Happy to talk at any point, do get in touch with us, but hopefully that gives you some help with that.
Thanks. Eamon asks if his project is going to exceed the amount that can be applied for. Should he highlight that you've also applied to help musicians for funding, and highlight which project tasks will be paid for by each funding scheme? Yes, please, Eamon. Olivia's nodding there. Anything to add, Olivia? We usually do state, you know, please tell us how it helps us to assess how viable your project is. So yes, other additional funding is important.
Yeah, that's information I would include in your budget, and identify which costs, as you said, would be provided by ACNI and any other sources.
Okay. Connor also not just was unaware that for the ACES scheme, he needed to speak to an officer, and where were applicants notified. So there'll be evidence on the platform to show I've been working on this throughout the month of July and August. Can I still submit? Sorry, Connor, no, just as, you know, as we said in the video presentation, and that window of opportunity is closed for this year. So it's in the guidance notes on the ACES that you must emphasize, you must speak to an officer by the date. So sorry for the disappointment. Anonymous.
Sorry, can I chip into that? If somebody has their fully formed project, maybe it could still be a fit for the General Art Award in some ways, even if it's not the ACES formality of that mentoring, although you can be mentored at any point you like, you know, with anybody. So if it's not a complete loss, have a wee think about it. General. It's not the same award, the money's less, but just to have a sideways think for them.
Yeah, there may be elements. Good thought, Suzanne. So do look at that. But you might choose to wait, you know, for a full ACES award for next year. Anonymous would like to know what constitutes engaging in artistic activities for previous year. Would this be simply attending as an audience member, readings, gigs, gallery showings, etc., or something more elaborate, such as hosting events, staging performances yourself? So this is just in your eligibility, that you must have been engaging in artistic activities for 1 year within the last 5. I guess it's what you choose to put as your contribution. However, if you're a practicing artist applying, you know, which you would be if you're applying for either of the schemes that we're discussing. I think probably it would be interesting to know more about your artistic activities. So that, you know, that would be important to tell us a little bit there, which is maybe what raised the question earlier about the separate attachment on your CV. Yes, your full CV is a separate attachment, and there may be a small overlap just in that word count about you know, your engagement. Anybody else anything to add on that? Okay. Heather, can SIAP be used to support new audience engagement work in England for a new publication? My Norwich-based publisher is keen for me to do a reading tour in England for my new book, but ACE won't support it because I'm based in Northern Ireland. Damien?
Yes. That would be my response. Yes, it would be. So good luck with that.
If you meet our other eligibility criteria, Heather, yes,
Yep.
That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. And obviously we'll be looking at, you know, how that will enhance your career and, you know, and benefit your practice and your development. So,
Yep.
Sarah wants to know, is a project proposal required for all SIAP funding applications, or can funding be awarded for artists' operational costs, materials, etc.? Who would like to take that? Suzanne, thanks.
I'll do that. That's grand. Not quite sure what area somebody's working in, but let's say it was visual, for example. There has to be a proposal, but that proposal could be the new work for the year ahead. So you could say, I want to paint 12 canvases. The costs for those are X in the budget. Operational costs, not quite sure what you mean. But you could, if you're in a funded studio group, then we can't fund your studio payment, but if there are other costs that you have, should get in touch with us and we'll help you work through that. Could be a range of things, but can't pay somebody's mortgage to cover things in SIAP, but other thoughts welcome. But yes, your project has to be something, so it can be the creation of new work, and then your materials is appropriate to carry you through either whatever it is for you, 3 months, 6 months, the year, whatever it may be. So yeah.
Thanks, Suzanne. We've another anonymous comment. Unfortunately, someone who was holding off submitting their ACES application to hear back from the partnering organisation and to get more information from this submission. But again, I'm sorry, no, we can't consider your application. Anonymous, I'm interested in delivering art workshops within local communities themed around mental health. Would this be something that is covered within SIAP? Anybody want to contribute? It depends. It sounds a bit more like a project and not actually about your own artistic development. So I'm going to say unlikely, unless it's very closely linked to your practice. But it sounds like no, that you know, you want to deliver workshops. Anybody else want to contribute to that one?
Just maybe drop a line to Lizzie Devlin, who is our Arts and Disabilities officer, so she can confirm maybe the direction to go in for that type of project.
Yeah, other funding rates, yeah. And Jackie, did you want to mention anything? You're on mute, Jackie.
Oh, sorry.
That's it now.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Just to say, Noreen, I just wanted to add that, you know, when you're putting a project together, it is about your personal development and your practice. Yeah. So if there, you know, if you're looking at ways to enhance your practice and enhance your career and make connections, but really it sounds like a project, like you said. So when it's project based, there are different funds of small grants, and there are other areas that maybe, there could be a better fit for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do remember you need to be an organisation to apply to other programs. So you might do that work through an organisation that might sponsor you. Would be a way maybe to look at it. There was a comment from Linda about being a bit confused about buying time too. If you have anything specific, Linda, but as I say, hopefully the guidance notes will help to clarify a little bit more about how to at least cost that. Karen, if you're applying for funding for an illustrated book of children's stories, what would you suggest as using for art form support material? Damien?
Well,
Suzanne, sorry.
What you're applying for right away is not a book. You're applying for writing and illustration. So the writing time would be the principal objective if you were coming into literature. So you would want to be supplying written material that would support the text element of the publication that you would have in mind. The illustration and the relationship between text and illustration is key in children's work. So you would really be looking for something, I would say that, now, you don't say whether you're doing both, but the relationship between the text and the image in children's book is critical. So, but you would be starting with the story. And I think if you were coming into literature, that's what I'd be looking for. And that's what I'd be looking for, material that would support your application on that front. And I can't really go much further than that, because the next stage then, the matching, if there is another artist that's the visual artist, then that would, according to how you were working with the artist, that would be something that you would have to tell us what the relationship was between you and the artist artistically, to determine how much of your budget you would be thinking of would be directed towards that element of the project. These are not easy answers, but they are trying to identify what the core artistic driver is for each application and who ultimately will benefit the most.
Thanks, Damien. We have a neurodiverse artist who has been unable to get through to the University of Atypical and can't get an answer or a reply. So sorry to hear that. Could I ask you to email Olivia at ogamble@artscouncil-ni.org, and we will pass that on and red flag it. If you don't mind just giving us your details, that would be great, and we'll make sure someone gets back to you. Linda, for ACES next year, what stage of career is appropriate? Is there a cutoff that after, for example, X number of project publications, you aren't eligible anymore? I would say no. Anyone want to elaborate on that?
Happy to, yeah. You can be at any stage. The point of the award is to kick your career up a notch. So it would be somebody with a couple of years experience at least in the practice and developing it and having self-awareness to see where you are with things and then to want to take it forward. So is the mentor appropriate for you to do that? We're looking for those kind of things. What can help you in that direction? So for visual, for example, is it that you want to work with a particular gallery or somebody that will give you greater skills in a particular area of interest? What is it for you that would lift your career up a notch? So in terms of stage, it doesn't matter, age and stage, and certainly age doesn't matter at all, stage, just a couple of years beyond degree at least. But we're open to conversations.
Karen, how does the evidence of quality of artistic practice in the first criteria differ from the evidence of artistic practice in the mandatory attachments. Karen, we'll be looking at your artistic CV in the mandatory attachments in detail, and we'll be drawing, a conclusion about that, about, the overall level of quality through your artistic practice and your CV to date. So they don't differ, but one informs the other, if that makes sense.
Well, one of the things that happens there is that you identify what artist you are in the on the form. We've had some examples where people are, diversifying their practice, but really, but there you would be saying on the actual form that there's a limit. You'd be looking at the headlines of your artistic career, just the headlines. I am this type of artist. This is what I've done for X years. These are the things that I've been involved in. Your artistic practice then, as a CV, history of artistic practice, can include then a whole range of things, maybe specific to one art form, or maybe, illustrating your abilities and achievements in a range of art forms. So you might have, for instance, someone who's, if you're looking at a writer, someone who's does short stories, but has also broadcast radio drama, radio stories, or has done other things of that type. So that would be the distinction between the two. But it's very, very important that all the criteria that you have to fill in online are filled in. There are two that you don't have to fill in online, and one is the budget, and no, there's only the one you don't have to fill in online, and that's the budget. So that's supplied separately, and the history of artistic practice is a document supplied separately, but you must fill in the headlines in the criterion one for your artistic work.
Jacqueline can only apply to ACES because she's had a general in the last 12 months. You've discussed your plans with the project officer and you're very disappointed that you may be ineligible. You've been working hard on a proposal. If that project officer was Arts Council, then that's okay. However, if it was a project officer with maybe the sponsor organisation, not with us, then sorry, Jacqueline. An anonymous question. If you've been previously awarded a SIAP for 4 years but couldn't submit the final proof of work due to severe illness, can you apply again? Olivia, is it too late to pick up on a post-project report?
That's definitely something that we can look into. Yeah. I would obviously just need to look into it in a bit more detail. But again, if anyone wants to pop me an email, I'm happy to get back to them after the webinar.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Visual art from Anonymous. For funds requested for exhibition production, like framing, can it be an estimate if the scale of work hasn't been decided as work in progress? Suzanne?
Yes, you could talk to a framer and just say roughly, if it was large, medium, small, whatever kind of scale, get a what seems to you to be an accurate cost for I get that you're saying the scale of the works hasn't been decided, but you maybe have a big notion. It's not going to be, if you're not unlikely to produce 5 foot by 5 foot kind of ones, then you probably, you can get a sense of scale that you work, or if you're pushing it a bit further. So do try to get as accurate a cost as you can. If somebody puts in for something, let's take it slightly sideways and say, I want £200 for paintbrushes. If that's not broken down, then we can't give it. You need to know it was 3 size 2, whatever, is at £32.50 each. So with the framing, again, it's just having that it's an accurate kind of costing on your part. I was going to say guesstimate. I mean, we could guess it too, but if you could have a framer or somebody to send you an email to say if it was X size or X size, and you tell us broadly, we'll not hold you necessarily to it absolutely, but that would strengthen it as a case. Put it that way. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And everybody on alert here, because there's a little bit of confusion. Anonymous says, perhaps I don't need to address the history of artistic practice in the application form at all. Perhaps I just need to submit the CV, ? Could you please clarify exactly which criteria need to be addressed in the form?
No, we need all criteria to be addressed in the application form, as Damien said, but apart from the criteria 2.2, which is the budget, and all the criteria that needs to be addressed can be found on page 22 of the guidance notes. We do say, we list the criteria, and then there is a column beside it that details what we assess the criteria against, and you'll note that all of them say written response within your application form.
Thank you. Can funding be awarded for time spent at the Centre Culturel Irlandais in Paris or other writing retreats? Damien? In principle, yes.
Yes. Yes. The other writing retreats, yes, except it won't be Tyrone Guthrie Centre because we fund it separately, and so we don't fund residency periods at the Tyrone Guthrie Centre. The Paris has its own selection process for its residencies. So if you wanted, and I think you either go to those directly, they may also be managed through the British Council. However, in principle, if you're going to take a residency period or a retreat period in anywhere, you'll be that's an eligible cost, yes, for applying to the Arts Council.
And sorry, Damien, I think we've made an amendment even on Tyrone Guthrie. So please just do check the guidance notes carefully. I think Olivia, am I right? We've taken that restriction out. But I'll move on to the next question just while Olivia's checking that. I'm sorry. Anya O'Hagan, I'm an emerging artist struggling to get funds for equipment. Would the individual artist programme help with only equipment costs without a project? Who wants to? Shannon, experience in music there? It still needs to be linked.
I'm happy to answer that. No, unfortunately, a project for just buying equipment would not be eligible under SIAP, as we mentioned kind of previously in the meeting. Equipment costs can only make up 50% of the total request just. So if you're requesting 2,000, there would be a maximum of 1,000 for equipment. And I would ask you to make sure to refer to the guidance notes because there's a number of questions you need to answer as to why you would need equipment as part of a project if you are coming in with a separate project. But the answer is no. If you're looking for just equipment, that's not eligible under this grant. You have to be coming in for your artistic development and not just purchasing equipment.
I'm going to add to that a wee bit. No dispute. Thanks, Shannon. I'm thinking in visual terms. If somebody needed an easel or whatever it may be in equipment in that line, there is something then very probably you could say that you have a project. If it were visual, I mean, if it's an easel you want, are you wanting to create a number of works in the next year, for example? So there is a project in some sense. If it were something like a computer, which you need, no matter what discipline you're in, but what would you do? What would you be doing with it? Is it for documentation of work? Is it for sharing with galleries? Is it for communicating with people in a way that your old machine is now too duff to do? So there will be something in your head that maybe you don't think is a project, but whatever if you need the equipment, what's it for? That's potentially the project or the thing around that. So do give us a ring or get in touch with us if you need some more help on that.
Yeah, there's a slight difference between materials like canvases, like paints and paper and all of that, and equipment. And yes, equipment, because this isn't a capital programme, we do have a cap on what percentage it might form and how it relates to your artistic practice. So do look at that carefully. We're not keen, we can't support a large amount of equipment, and yeah, but if in doubt, please do just double check with us.
There also is a limit to what we will contribute towards IT equipment as well. Just to say, I think it's 1,200 for laptops and 500 towards tablets.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. Someone working in theatre script development, are you able to apply for funding to work on the writing, or does it have to be development in a studio space, etc.? Damien?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Just for the writing, yeah.
Yeah. Lisa, if I was applying for buying time for the writing and creation of new music, would I also be able to cover the cost of performing this work, like in a showcase or series of concerts? And would this also include the costs of other performers' fees? Shannon, do you want to tackle, or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would absolutely be an eligible cost, Lisa. So the likes of paying other performers for your concerts and venue hire and things like that, you can come in for that as part of your project as well.
Thank you. Adriana, artistic practices developed across the border while living in Northern Ireland are valid to prove 1 year of experience, ? I would say yes. Yep, cross-border cooperation. You're based in Northern Ireland, or you meet the eligibility criteria. And if you've been working in a cross-border context, that seems okay to me. Yeah. Michael, would buying time be appropriate to apply for if you're looking to develop a new skill in an area where you're not familiar, i.e. developing skills in playwriting and theatre when you have a film and television background? In principle, yes, but we will be looking at your artistic CV. So, you know, I guess, and you need to look at what you'd be submitting, you know, in terms of your, I mean, if you've no play writing background whatsoever, it might be difficult for Damien to judge that, but over to Damien.
Well, you would be demonstrating in the application exactly what you've said there, that you're looking to develop a new skill in an area you're not familiar with. So you would want to be presenting a proposal which outlined how you would actually go about doing that. That would be the first thing you'd be looking for in terms of how the project itself would work. So you'd need to know what skills you wanted to acquire and where you would get them. So that would be a strong proposal. Your history of artistic activity then would be outlined in detail in the attached document, and you would be able then to demonstrate, you know, levels of proficiency in writing for other genres. So I think that would be that's one of those ones where you make your artistic case as strongly as you can and be able to evidence the kind of research that you put together as to how you're going to go about it, why you're going to go about it, and who you'll be going about it with, if you like.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. I might need Olivia to check this while we move on, but guidance mentions residency costs. It says NB specific schemes only. What is meant by specific schemes? So unless you have that to hand, Olivia, could you just double check that for us and we'll come back?
Yeah, I'll double check that, yeah.
Thank you. Connell wants to know, when drafting the budget for an application, are there certain percentages you would be expecting to see as allocated to the various headings, i.e. buying time 30%, material, equipment 40%, marketing 30%, etc.? Suzanne is...
Yeah, no problem. Shaking my head. Yep. No, there are no percentages in that sense. No, absolutely whatever you want it to be, except that if you're buying equipment, that can be up to 50% of your total application, and indeed the limit on the computer in terms of money at 1,200 max, and tablets as already mentioned. So those are mentioned in the guidance notes, but beyond that, no, there are no fixed percentages for anything.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, just to jump back, just in relation to that, there's a wee footnote in the guidance notes on the same page where it states the residency cost within the what you can apply for. And it just states you can apply for funding for residencies through the Artist International Development Fund and the Minority Ethnic Artist Mentoring and Residency Scheme only.
Okay.
So we know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So do we need to recap then on our retreats in Paris, for example?
Well, I mean, if someone applies to literature for a writer's retreat at Arvin, or you know, there are several kinds of these. One of them would be a tuition-based residency, if you like, where artists at a particular, or writers at a particular objectives in mind would apply to be taken on a week-long tuition somewhere. That would be an eligible cost. That's skilling, that's CPD, that's already an opportunity which we would be inclined to support, all other things being equal in their application. There are other types of retreat where someone who wants to develop their writing will maybe want to take time out and just go off somewhere for a long weekend or for a week to a location. It could be a caravan in the North Coast or whatever, and there would be costs associated with that. You know, the hiring and heating and stuff like that. All of that's eligible, and so would the childcare related to it would be eligible too. So there you would be focusing on the value of the request, the amount that's being requested, the potential value that the applicant will be able to identify from that particular period, working on their own. So it comes back down to the project and everything. But if all of those things are strong and persuasive, then certainly we would be supporting that proposal. Those are the time to create, time to write is the single most difficult item to get your hands on. And I think that would be part of what we would look at in certainly in literature or drama or any sort of creating thing like that. That would be my take on that. The Paris thing, as I said, they have their own selection process. You apply to them separately, and they will give you a bursary if you actually are selected. So it's not quite as straightforward as it may seem.
Yeah, and just to recap there, I mean, in the past we had a number of named residencies. For example, you know, the British School at Rome and various others, which we don't directly fund anymore. So for something as ambitious as that, the Artists International Development Fund, which does support, you know, those sort of set piece residencies, which are well established, would be more appropriate. But as Damien has illustrated there, you know, sort of under buying time as an artist, if you need to go away somewhere where you'll find solitude, and that might be somewhere like the Tyrone Guthrie Centre, or you know, spending a time in not the formal named residencies, perhaps at the Cultural Centre in Paris, then some of those costs under your buying time for you to take time out, but to go someplace where you maybe would pay a fee, but it's not a formal residency. So please, if in doubt, come through to us and we can let you know whether we feel it's more appropriate for the Artists International Development Fund or into your general award application. Stephen wants to know, as an organisation applying to the International Development Fund to a theatre piece, can the individual artists involved apply separately for themselves on the same project? This could be for access, costs, fees, accommodation, flights, etc. just joined the conversation, so sorry if touched on already. That gets complicated for us, Stephen. We would prefer that your application to the International Development Fund, although I appreciate there is a cap on it, but I think all your costs should be in there. The only additional thing that might be, you might look at travel awards. There might be a wee bit of additional help there, but really, no, the International Development Fund for organisations, all of your costs should be in there. We just run into the problem of potentially double funding some elements. So my advice would be to keep those separate. Suzanne, did you want to add?
No, I'm sitting thinking that we missed a question before, so I'm just trying to catch you before you move on one. So no more thoughts on that one, thank you. But there's one about new work for visual artists just before Stephen Kelly's question.
Oh, yes. Okay. When applying for the creation of new work, does it have to be a final outcome like a gallery showing or something to that level to show the creation of new work?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be a guaranteed show. We'd like to see your ambition that you were hoping to find a show. So if you're creating a new body of work, why are you doing that? We hope you'd say in it that you were, looking for an opportunity to exhibit, and maybe, if you wanted to, what kinds of galleries in the career or other bit, maybe what you would do with that new body of work. Would you contact a range of galleries, including X, Y, and Z? We just need to see the level of your ambition and to see if it matches with what you're doing. Happy to see that. Great that you'd be thinking that, but you don't have to have a guaranteed show. If you do, you can always put in a letter from the organisation to say, yes, we'll be hosting whoever in whichever gallery, but you're not going to lose marks by not having that. You just need to share with us what you want to do. So it can just be create that new body of work. So what's the scale of that and what might you do with it?
Thanks, Suzanne. Lane wants to know if we could go back to the question about artistic activities in Northern Ireland. As a writer, is it sufficient to say being part of a writing group, attending creative writing classes locally and attending writing events? Would that be considered as part of a contribution or not?
Yes, it would.
Okay. If you sell mainly directly via social media, rather than having an extensive gallery-based CV, will that be looked at unfavourably?
No, we're thrilled for you that you're selling. That's great. However you're doing it. We're looking for somebody who's being professional or developing professionally in their practice. So that's absolutely no problem that you do that. We'll be looking as well to see maybe have you shown elsewhere or what kind of work you're producing, what you want the future of that to be, and kind of gauging that from your CV and other things. But no, there's absolutely no problem with selling however you choose.
Thank you. Anonymous, this is a collaborative theatre project, Damien. Can you apply for the project director's fee if you're yet to engage the director? Also, where can I find the daily rates I can apply for rehearsal time?
This is a project proposal, no?
It would be, I'm interpreting, yeah, the collaborative project.
What you'd be looking for, I think, is to, because it's support for the individual, I would be looking at you applying for something that would be able to cover your creative costs. Say, since you're the person who's overseeing the development of the project, and I would imagine looking at the recruitment of key people. So I would focus, just switch your focus slightly to look at your support costs in relation to this project, or in relation, to the proposal. But this is one that you might want to, have a word with Keelan Curry Thompson, who's our drama officer, and just talk through what you've got in mind here. in detail, because we'd want to be sure that you're applying for, what you're applying for is eligible, and that you're able to apply for the accurate costs.
Yeah, and you might find we've got a little guide to various union recommended rates. And we don't advise rates, but we do direct you towards guidance and best practice. That's available on the website. Anna wants to know, do art materials come under the same heading as equipment? I hope we've drawn that out now, Anne. Art materials would be more your disposable, if I can use that term, like, paint and paper, and equipment is more fixed, like your laptop, and you really have to have a good case around your equipment.
Materials can include the paint brushes and things. That's not equipment, that's a disposable as well. It'll wear out in that kind of sense. So yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sinead wants to know, can your application be 50% technical equipment and 50% IT? Sorry, Olivia, I'll let you come in.
Sorry, no, you need to, we wouldn't probably accept equipment only applications unless any of the officers want to jump in.
However, if you're asking, Sinead, Olivia's right, it can't just be an application for that, that's not eligible. But within the eligible equipment and your case for that, you could break down what you're applying for, if that's what you're asking. And given the previous comments about it still needs to be a proposal, and you really have to justify why the IT is essential and the technical to your artistic development. Okay. Anonymous, I'm an art psychotherapist hoping to apply to SIAP for creation of new work and to develop my artist side, which has been a bit dormant. For the CV, would I include art therapy experience, or would this be seen as not relevant?
I would put that in, absolutely, just to show in terms of your artistic career in that broad sense, because I know it's about other people in that sense, but I would, just to give that all-round sense of you as a professional in that art sphere. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Deirdre wants to know what's still open for applications for an emerging textile artist. I missed the Friday deadline too, so that must have been the ACEs you were thinking of, Deirdre. The general art awards are still open. Okay. And it's very flexible, as we've been discussing. So that would be the one for you, depending on your project. Thinking ahead to future ACES calls, if you're established in one art form but emerging in another, and want to apply for ACES in the emerging form, what's the best approach? E.g., a writer wanting to develop their visual arts practice. Could I ask you to come in early for a conversation with us about that? Not putting you off now, but as it is in the future, please do take the time, and you could talk to either Damien or Suzanne on that one.
But why would you go to the dark side? Is my I can't understand that though. There is still time. There is still time.
Okay, we have a comment from Anonymous, very disappointed again on the ACES to set a deadline for a project. I mean, all I would say is it wasn't a deadline for the submission of your application, but it was an internal deadline and guidance to you about talking to your officer, given that the ACES are very developmental and important. And apologies if you feel we didn't communicate that effectively. We'll certainly look at that in more detail. And then you do mention you think this team is something to answer for there when it comes to supporting applicants. Anonymous, could the location for writing be cross-border, or would that not be eligible? It's a bit like the previous question, Damien, about the tour in England, I guess.
Well, again, it's just a wee bit unclear as to what might be meant here, but if it's a place to write, it's the writer that's the important element of this. So where you do your writing doesn't really matter. It's your eligibility for getting an award from the Arts Council of Northern Ireland that counts, and it's obviously your ability to address the criteria well. That would be that one. But the fact it's cross-border wouldn't have an effect really.
Yeah. This might be your online selling online artist, Suzanne, but just checking that we got the question. Can we include money to scan original paintings for making prints? If working towards an exhibition, would getting prints done be considered too?
Oh, hadn't picked this question up. Sorry, Ali, if I'd missed that. No, we're interested in your original practice, not the scanning to sell prints of an original artwork. So if you were fine art printmaking, that would be slightly different. That's something we can cover, but not the production of the scanned ones. Would prioritize your original work and you creating that, and then what you do beyond that's up to you.
Okay. Gwen asks, they've heard the Arts Council doesn't support digital work that will be available for sale in the NFT market. Is this true?
Nope, not as far as I know. No, if that's the way you're going to go with your practice, that's interesting and fine. I think that, I don't know, but did that arise maybe with Creative Industries funding? I don't know, but certainly in SIAP, as development of your practice, that should be okay. Happy to talk about it, Gwen.
Just to note, in the guidance notes, sorry to interrupt you, Suzanne. In the guidance notes, we state under the what you cannot apply for, we state film, TV, or media project, except project by digital artists whose artwork is created exclusively in the digital space. I'm not sure if that's of any help.
Thank you. That's helpful. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Someone asks, what funds, if any, can I apply for with regards to taking part in Craftworks London in May 24? For example, new work, travel, accommodation. Suzanne, timescale is okay.
Timescale is okay. Potentially some in general. The travel awards, if they open again, would be helpful on that. But sorry, I'm processing that. You could put something in a general around it, but ideally travel awards, but that's just not an option at the minute. So they may be out again by a point that's useful for that. But you could think about some things. Happy to talk to you about that to see what costs there are for the Craftworks. Is it creation of new work as well, or is it just the travel and accommodation?
Yeah, you mentioned new work there, so if it is, it would seem, yes, as Suzanne's suggesting there, you could probably put together a general application, general art award application. Our travel awards will be open again. Probably you won't be able to apply until a couple of months in advance, so that's just something to keep in mind for early next year. And hopefully at the very least we could help you with that, but there might be a general art award application in there. Jacqueline wants to know, who can I get in contact with to clarify my position, please? I've discussed my plans with 2 people at SANI and I have a partner organisation willing to work with me.
If you want to contact myself, I can look into that for you if you want to pop me an email. My email address is just ogamble@artscouncil-ni.org.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. Elaine, are travel costs eligible as part of the budget if being used to reach venues to showcase music, e.g. gigs or festivals?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Noreen. Yes, Elaine, that would be an eligible cost as part of your budget, so we can cover the likes of mileage or air travel as part of your project. Just have a look at the guidance notes, because we do have a certain rate for mileage, which I don't know off the top of my head, but just make sure you're adhering to that when you're doing your budget.
Thank you. Somebody missed the first part. Can I apply for funding as an emerging producer and contribute the funds to a short film I'm currently in pre-production for? Thank you. I'm afraid that's a no. We don't fund film projects. And again, just that was sort of emphasized in the guidance notes presentation. But if you just take a look back there yourself, just to see the reasons there. Maybe Screen NI could be helpful to you. Can you include things like storage, other equipment in the materials list? If I'm applying for the creation of work, can I include things like boxes for the art to be stored in, drying racks to be stored on, or trolleys to place work into and travel with? Yes. Yeah. Does Jackie or Suzanne want to come in on that one?
Yeah. That is equipment. The storage bit is the equipment. Sorry, I'm just reading the question again at the same time, kind of processing that. Drying racks, equipment, trolleys, equipment. So yes, you certainly could have storage things, but that will be equipment rather than materials.
Yeah, and storage is really neither, but potentially an eligible cost depending on the case that you make.
Yeah, all important stuff, drying racks and all the rest. So absolutely, go equipment on that.
Oh, and seeing Kate's question reminds me, I think I skipped one earlier where someone asked if the scoring matrix is available. So sorry, I missed that. Kate has reminded me, she said, I'm sure this info is somewhere. Could you please tell me when the SIAP decisions are made? That's November?
Yeah, there's no specific date just yet, but it will be in November 23, yeah.
Yeah. And just up above, Olivia, someone did ask about, how's it scored?
That's also in the guidance notes.
Yeah.
If you go towards the end of the document, it will show you the assessment criteria and what that is assessed against in a table.
Yeah. Thanks, Siobhan. Sorry, I just remembered I missed that earlier. And what looks like maybe the last question, as a new author, if I have the opportunity to pitch my work to publishers in the UK, e.g. London, are flights an eligible cost?
Yes.
Damien? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In a nutshell, yes. Olivia, just want to double check. No reference to Tyrone Guthrie.
In the guidance, I couldn't see anything. No.
Yeah. Sorry, Damien. I think we took that out just on that very principle that you were discussing. Even though we do give a relatively large grant to TGC, we were just balancing with the need for people to have a retreat. So we've taken that exemption out. So again, back to that question, just about going somewhere to concentrate on your practice. Yes, that seems to be all the questions. Did we miss anything out?
I think maybe one just came in a second ago there.
Okay, I can't see.
Do you want me to read it out? I'm hoping to produce artwork and try selling at arts and crafts markets. Can I include marketing materials like flyers, leaflets, banners, etc.? Also, cost of having a table of at an arts and crafts market.
Oh, you could put that in. It would want us to be supporting your practice. That's part of your wider practice and selling your work. So it's not ruled out, but the stronger elements of an application would probably be about the creation for you. But of course you want to get it out there. Of course you do. So you could make sure you give good breakdowns of costs for those things. And yes, they could in theory come in.
Thank you. We'll just give you 1 minute for anybody who's frantically typing in any other questions. But just while we're, 60 has popped up. Can we see what that last one is? Yes. I'd like to work further on a book of poetry, and I'd also like to develop a play. And am I able to apply for both projects in one application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Damien. And I'll take with the last one that's here at the minute. Is it possible to claim for a new fiddle bow, or is that under the instrument grant? Yes, that would be under the instrument grant. And keep an eye on the website. We're hoping to open the musical instruments program for individuals fairly soon. We don't have an opening date just yet, but we're just finalising guidance notes, so keep an eye out. Okay. So that's up to 60 on the Q&A. And yeah, so last minute just for any burning questions. And do any of our officers want to make any last observations or guidance based on the questions that have been asked? No? Oh, 61. I generally buy art materials online, Amazon. Is there somewhere specifically you would suggest to use for costings of materials, i.e. paint?
No, Jackie, you want to give it a whirl?
No, one thing to say though is that when you submit in your budget, if you do send us quotes from, if you've more than one quote, that is something positive that you could do for your application, and let us know, how much you intend. They could be from Amazon, they could be from online, they could be from a shop, it doesn't matter. But if you have comparative quotes, then that all goes towards helping your application.
Oh, okay, we're on 63. So one of the last questions is having a stall at craft markets seen as part of making a contribution. You've maybe, this is slightly different from the previous one. Making a contribution, I would say yes. If it's your own work. Yeah. And if it's your own work, that would be particularly relevant. Yeah. If I'm bringing another artist in from a different discipline to collaborate on with the project, but she's also applying as an individual, would it affect her application? Not if it's a different project. They're two distinctly different projects. That is fine. One's a collaborative one, engaging that artist, but she's also applying then for her own practice. So hope that answers that. Okay, well, it is, we've been at it for an hour and 20 minutes, so hopefully that's given enough time. Do remember, with the exception of ACEs, you can come through to officers on remaining queries just on general art awards, okay? And yeah, and plenty of time then for ACEs for next year. And again, apologies to those who are disappointed. Yeah, and we'll look at that. The upside was we felt a webinar was necessary to answer the questions, but there was a specific deadline pertaining to that. So it was just an opportunity for those who had maybe already met the requirements for coming in for ACEs to ask any further questions. So sorry if that confused people. Okay, well, last one, 64 has popped up. Do you classify yourself as an emerging artist if you were emerging as a playwright but established as an actor? Sorry for the late question. That's an interesting one. we've put emphasis on emerging artists this year, I hope for obvious reasons, and we've given a definition, which hopefully, is helpful. The objective really is trying to help people who maybe haven't been supported to date, and at an earlier stage. That's quite a difficult one. Yes, you will be emerging in a new art form. So anybody want to try to unpick that one?
I would have thought that as with most things, a lot will hinge on the material that's submitted in support of the application. So that would certainly give a sense of your capacity as a playwright in relation to what you submit. Your activity then, contribution to the arts, I think would be well evidenced, I would say, by your work as an actor and other engagements that you'd have had there. So I would again focus on the material that you submit in support of your skills as a playwright. The emerging category is hard to define. If you consider yourself emerging, then you're emerging. That would be and you're eligible to apply on that basis.
Yeah. Thank you, Damien. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would just emphasize again, we're trying to be encouraging to maybe those who haven't been funded before, and to give them the confidence to come forward. So, but we'll look at absolutely everything. Everyone has got a case to make. I'm afraid there's number 65. No, I'm not afraid. Oh no, somebody said thanks, and it was very informative. Good. Well, I hope it was. But please do follow up with us in writing, especially the artist who wasn't able to get through to the University of Atypical, and the person on ACES who feels they have spoken to 2 officers, and Olivia will talk you through, and the person who hadn't been able to submit their post-project report, just to check if they would be eligible, and anything else. So thank you for your time. I'm afraid we're running out, just keeping just another thank you. So I won't look at the Q&As anymore, but we'll just say thank you very much for coming in, and good luck with your applications. And we'll be in touch in November when we're through the process. So all the best for today. Thanks. Bye.